With Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door's remake being such a big hit, many are wondering what will come next for the franchise. Hopefully, a main series game with a return to form is in order, but what is going to come next in the remake department? There are two possible answers. Some may say the clear-cut answer is a remake to the original Nintendo 64 Paper Mario, a game that arguably needed a remake even more than Thousand Year Door, as its visuals and gameplay are far more dated. But there is some competition for this Nintendo 64 classic spot as Paper Mario's next remake, the wacky Super Paper Mario. Of these two vastly different Paper Mario entries, which one is most deserving of being brought into the future? Paper Mario is a series that just doesn't keep the same gameplay style. The first two games were a traditional turn-based RPG with platformer elements in the overworld. Then, Super Paper Mario forewent all turn-based combat and was this hybrid 2D platformer with RPG-like attack stats. Then there were three other games that I don't care about right now. They all had different sorts of gameplay too, often regarded as inferior to the first three. Of all the Paper Mario games, the two that are most similar to each other are the original Paper Mario on the Nintendo 64 and Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. While the battle system isn't identical in these two games, the Thousand-Year Door's gameplay and battle engine is simply an upgraded version of the original. The gameplay of Super Paper Mario, however, is something that has never been seen before or since that game's release. But what's so special about Super's gameplay, and is it something worth preserving? What makes Super Paper Mario so unique is how it blends platformer gameplay and RPG stats. You walk around a map much like a standard Mario level, but when you come across an enemy, you do damage like you would in an RPG. This gameplay isn't perfect. I would say the biggest flaw of the game is the boss battles. 2D platformers aren't super great in the boss department, and Super Paper Mario is no exception. Some bosses have interesting ways of going about the fight, such as needing to throw these little guys at Fractal's antenna, but most bosses just boil down to avoid attacks and jump on head. Compare this to a turn-based RPG like Thousand Year Door, where the boss battles are the most exciting part of the game and give the player an opportunity to take advantage of all the different kinds of combat the game has to offer. Another RPG element that falls flat in Super is the world itself feeling a little less lived in. A 2D space is inherently limited. It's difficult to convey a fleshed out world this way. While the dialogue and characterization in this game is fantastic, I will often feel a bit of a disconnect from this world. All these flaws wouldn't be fixed in a remake. It's just inherent to the kind of game Super is. So, of the two games, which one do I think deserves a remake more? I'm gonna throw my red cap in the ring and say that it's Super Paper Mario, not Paper Mario 64, that should be next on Nintendo's list of games to remake. I should acknowledge some of my personal bias, being that I actually prefer Super Paper Mario to Thousand Year Door and the original. My preference is purely just because I like dynamic games where you move around more as opposed to RPGs that are a little more stop and thinky. So I am not saying that Super is an objectively better game than Thousand Year Door. Super has far more flaws and gameplay issues. I just like its kind of gameplay more than RPGs. Beyond me just liking that kind of gameplay more, I think there are other more substantial reasons Super should get a remake over the original. Something that the remake of Thousand Year Door achieved was bringing the proper turn-based RPG gameplay from this era of Paper Mario into the modern era for modern audiences. A hypothetical remake of Paper Mario 64 would do nothing more than be an add-on to that. And if they were faithful in the remake and kept stuff like the partners not having their own health bars, the BP cap, and the lack of a pit of 100 trials, a Paper Mario 64 remake would feel like a massive downgrade. Super Paper Mario, on the other hand, has completely different gameplay than the first two, and a remake would give the current audience a chance to see that gameplay. While 64 would need significant improvements if remade, Super Paper Mario wouldn't need too many fundamental changes. The Thousand Year Door remake offered lots of improvements, mostly in the backtracking and fast navigation department. Super has a few of these issues too, but not as many as the Thousand Year Door. Still, there can be some fixes, such as making navigating flipside a little faster and making it less likely to get lost looking for that darn chocolate bar out in space. I feel so bad for Mario getting swirled around in these wormholes. But beyond quality of life changes, what about actual new content? The Thousand Year Door remake did have a distinct lack of brand new content. I guess the reason for this is that Thousand Year Door was already such a big game that it didn't need much new content. I don't agree with that, but that's a subject for another video. Thousand Year Door's most substantial new content was the inclusion of two super bosses, Prince Mush and the Whack-a-Bump guy. If Super Paper Mario added new content, they really wouldn't be able to get away with just adding two more super bosses, because the bosses just aren't that great in this game. I think a Super remake would absolutely have to have some kind of new area or post-game chapter. Even with Nintendo's stingy design philosophy regarding new content, I feel they would still have to do this. Super Paper Mario was pretty controversial when it came out, but honestly, the biggest crime this game committed was not being Thousand Year Door. It doesn't matter how good the gameplay of Super Paper Mario is, when you play it, you can't help but blame it for the end of proper turn-based RPG gameplay in the Paper Mario series, which is something that never properly returned to the series in a new installment to this very day. But with a Thousand Year Door remake, we are shown that Nintendo is looking to possibly go back to that style of Paper Mario game. So, a Super Paper Mario remake wouldn't trigger the same kind of animosity. Probably. The best timing for a Super Paper Mario remake would be sometime after the next new Paper Mario title, assuming that Paper Mario title is more in line with Thousand Year Door's gameplay, which hopefully is the direction Nintendo is heading. But then that begs the question, will we just repeat history? Will this then give way to Super Paper Mario getting its own sort of sequel game? And then will fans blame Super Paper Mario for ending the turn-based RPG gameplay once more? The solution for that would be for 2D platformer Paper Mario and turn-based Paper Mario to coexist, kind of like how we have 3D Mario platformers and 2D Mario platformers. Other than the fact that Mario and some other characters look the same, these games really have nothing in common. Why are they even in the same series? I know that's a lot to ask for. We get Paper Mario games so rarely. Now I'm saying there should be two separate Paper Mario series? There probably isn't a profit incentive nor available infrastructure from Nintendo to make such a thing happen. And if we do happen to get something like Super Paper Mario again, it would probably suffer from the same kind of comparisons it got back when it was released. If you have access to Super Paper Mario, I really do encourage you to give it a try, and consider if this is the best remake for the future. I'm sure the safe route for Nintendo is for them to just remake 64, or possibly not remake any Paper Mario at all. Maybe Thousand Year Door was just that much of an outlier, and us expecting more remakes is wishful thinking. I'm just wondering if that, since the dust has settled on Super Paper Mario, are there fans out there of this game? Does anyone want to see its gameplay return? Let me know in the comments below. Hey, if you like this video on Paper Mario, maybe you should check out this other Paper Mario video right here. Or if you're into speculating about future Mario RPGs, I also covered the potential for monster collecting in the Mario Luigi games. You can check out that video right here. If you like what I do and want to see me do more of it, consider becoming a channel member or checking out my Patreon, link in the description. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.